in conjunction with those aforementioned humbucker guitars, what took you down the path to lead you to the lower wattage amps and where you're at today?
I mean, I feel it's easier to like speak in analogies when I'm talking about that. I mean, for me, the big amps and the guitars that are designed for big amps specifically, because let's face it, like a full stack suits the humbucker guitar,
Absolutely.
right? Or rather, excuse me, I think a humbucker guitar was designed specifically to suit the growing wattage in amplifiers at the time when when those were invented. So from a fundamental or from a foundational standpoint, like playing the loud stuff with the gear that allows the loud stuff, you've already it felt to me like as if we'd already made these decisions that just like boxed us into a corner where it also happens to look cool. There's like a swagger that comes along with it.
Yeah.
And I think something that Baroness has always made an effort to try to do is to sort of thwart or question the status quo. So maybe at the beginning of my foray into changing, from the more traditional loud setup to I guess like a more bluesy sort of country setup was just because you could go out and see 6 shows in a week. If everybody's got the same gear, everybody pretty much sounds the same. I mean, there's like
especially at loud volume.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is I come to a more realistic understanding of how volume makes an impression on people and how the illusion of tone that volume gives, right? Because we all, of course, as guitar players, we always talk about tone, and it's like this unending discussion.
Yeah.
Well, when you turn something up that loud, if you can hear the difference between the notes, then people are generally going to assume that the tone is good. Whereas I've come to think that maybe it's just volume, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as our stages grew and we became more dependent on the sound of our PA, I started to realize that it wasn't necessarily the volume that was creating the tone, it was the volume that was masking maybe some of the inefficiencies of the tone, like the fact that sometimes the sound would be boxy or muddy or inarticulate. And I feel like when I want my sound to go completely haywire and when I want it to be complete noise, that should be a decision that I make, not something that's built, hardwired into all the equipment that I use. So in my mind, playing music with a Gibson through a Marshall full stack is more an equivalent to being a blacksmith using a sledgehammer, whereas using these more Fender style guitars, or literally Fender guitars, a Stratocaster, a Princeton, and a Deluxe on stage, is more like using a scalpel and being a neurosurgeon. So it's just a matter in how we're expressing ourselves. If we want those elements of precision, if we want those elements of like very fine-tuned, detailed expression, then this is a better setup. If we just if it's just about like the rock and roll attitude, maybe Gibson full stack is like a better thing. But
I don't know, that shit sounds awesome there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying a Gibson in a full stack sounds great, but it doesn't sound unique to me.
Yeah.
It's like you sound like AC/DC, you sound like Zeppelin.
Would you say it's like more expressive, allowing yourself to have such a greater dynamic range? Because not that I have oscilloscope, but a humbucker through a loud stack, like you're saying, that cranked up probably has squished dynamics and the lack of to be able to loud
very little dynamics.
Yeah.
The further you turn up, the less dynamics you get. Everything comes out the same.
There's a lot more expressiveness you can have through the instruments that you guys are using now.
Like the touch that we're able to apply on these guitars is, it's almost daunting. It's almost daunting when you make that switch to realize how exposed you've become. But through that exposure, it's sort of driven us to become better, in my opinion, better musicians, better songwriters, and there's less to hide behind, on stage and elsewhere. And, another additional thing was we moved our rigs over from more like a mono sound to a true stereo sound. And in order to do that, you need headroom. And in order to have headroom, you need space between your notes, and this is better suited for that. And this, really, at this point, I'm just explaining a decision that was made, almost 3 albums ago, just to make our band sound better and more unique. So, at this point, it's hard to say that we could even accomplish any of our newer material from the past couple records with the more old-fashioned Baroness rig.